Yeah, so with this Gothic-like start, let's move to the topic. So, what this talk will be about? First, I will give you a quick recap what are the Chronicles of Myrtana, because I know some of you might not know this our scope. Then I'll move to post-mortem on the Chronicles of Myrtana, how our process of creating it uh, was going. And in this subject, I will speak how we defined, maintained, and communicated the game vision for the Chronicles, how the flow of information between members of our team was looking like, and how this affected our creation of coherent gameplay. And the last subject will be why it was important that everybody in the development team was playing the game, even if they were from marketing or they were doing some concept art. Everyone in our team was testing the game. So who am I? My name is Jakub Tomczak, as you probably know. I was game director and lead producer in the Chronicles of Myrtana. I graduated from Jagiellonian University, and I worked for almost 3 years in the financial sector. And when I started working on Chronicles of Myrtana, I had no previous game dev experience. So, the Chronicles of what? It's a total conversion mod. It's based on the Gothic 2 Night of the Raven by Piranha Bytes. We released Chronicles in 2021 on Steam, GOG, and ModDB in cooperation with THQ Nordic, who is currently the owner of the rights to the Gothic. We are developing it for over 4 years. It's an action RPG, open world, and it's story driven. And we wanted it to be as much lore friendly as we can do it. So we decided that we'll make it as a prequel. And what our host has to offer. So a quick recap, we have over 60 hours of gameplay, 170 quests and random events, entirely new map that is bigger than Korinis from Gothic 2, over 400 NPCs, orchestral soundtrack, and we have 81 hours of voiceovers in Polish, and also English text-only translation. So there would be no Chronicles of Myrtana, or there could be any game without the team. And in the Chronicles of Myrtana team, we had almost 40 developers across multiple teams, and we worked 100% remotely. Like, we never had any session that we created something for the Chronicles on the side. Everybody was working on their own in their own house. So even before the pandemic, we were working remotely. So when the pandemic hits, nothing changed really for us. So we were totally fine with working remotely. And everyone on the team was working non-profit for 4 years. Like, many people ask me, are we idiots that we were creating a game for 4 years for basically nothing? But I will move to that later. And just like me, nobody on the team had any game dev experience when starting the work. We had sub-teams in our team, and we had it divided a little bit different than in some cases with the professional studios, because we had a narrative that that was only making dialogues, and then we had gameplay and code, and gameplay was creating quests from those narrative bits, because scripting in Gothic is quite challenging, and it's very hard to get people to know both, like know how to write a good quest, good dialogues and stuff like that, and at the same time know to code Gothic quests. So we had a separate team that was working only on dialogues and on the basic form of quest, and then gameplay and code took scripting, 2D and 3D art, level design, audio and promotion. And this was very important for us, because for the most of the production we did not have any audio created. Like, the voiceovers and the music were done in the very late stage of production. So in the beginning, this team was taking care of promotion, of getting people on board to have something to show to our fans, and our QA. and who helped us along the way. We had over 60 voice actors, 50 musicians, almost 200 patrons helped us to finance all our problems that we had to, like, there are some stuff we still had to pay, like licensing, giving back money if someone had to go somewhere to make something work. So we had our patronite, and we had over 30 focus testers who were outside the team, and many other collaborators. So does anyone even play a 20-year-old game anymore? And turns out, yes, we had over 300,000 downloads across the Steam. The reviews were quite positive. We won title of the mod of the year, and we had 4 nominations at Digital Dragons. And I'm now moving to the subject, why modding? So 4 years with no payout. Most of us do it as a hobby. Some of us made it as game dev experience because we had none. We tried hitting many companies if they want to hire us, and most of us got just rejected or didn't even get a rejecting letter. So we were thinking, okay, we'll make this small mod, maybe somebody will want to hire us, and the mod grew bigger and bigger. So in the end, it's quite big. So we had possibility to meet and cooperate with professionals because lots of actors are very well renowned, and they saw our passion of creating, and when they heard that we're doing all of this for nothing, like just to bring some joy to the fans, they will like, okay, we can do it too. If you make no money out of it, we don't any too. So this is the question that I also get very often, that how did we manage to get so many people involved in the project? And I think it's just this passion with wanting nothing in return. Like, we were giving something to our fans, and they were, okay, we'll do it too. And outside of that, we had freedom of creating. Like, we had no publisher, we had no deadlines, we had no budget, so we could do literally anything that we wanted without fearing that somebody will tell us, okay, stop working, it's over. Yeah, and like I said, the mod was quite big, and as I also said, we had no experience. And I think it's one of the great values that we had, that nobody told us how to not make a game. Like, I am thinking that if someone say to you that, like I am today, that something worked for me, it was okay, we managed to pull it off, you can take this experience with you, and you somehow know, okay, this might not always work, but this worked one time. But if somebody told you that this doesn't work, don't do it that way, he might not know that this approach could work in other occasions. He's experienced with failing that way, but he doesn't know if you will fail that way. So I'm thinking that this was a great thing for us, that we haven't known anything about game dev when starting this project. So we started with a vision of the game, and from that vision we came up with design targets. Design targets gave us design solutions, and only the design solution and design targets moved us to management solutions. We also had no experience in managing people, and since there were like 30 or 40 of us most of the time, we had to manage our own. We didn't have someone with leading experience or production experience. We had to just learn on the go, and it was quite hard because we had to manage our colleagues. It wasn't like you get a boss and you can hate him and you can do what he asks you to do, but then in the corridor just say that, oh my god, it's terrible decision. We were all colleagues, and sometimes somebody has to take a decision, and it was quite hard, especially at the beginning. So our vision was to create a game that allows players to feel like they were playing Gothic 2 for the first time once again. Like, I love this meme, and when I first saw it after the premiere, my eyes were wet because it exactly depicts what we wanted to achieve. And for that, we have defined most important things in a Gothic game. As this is more production and leadership, I won't go through all of them, but we had created a list from discussions, from player forums, from other places you can get a feedback of Gothic. And since it's 20 years old game, you can get really a lot of this feedback. And we created those points. And from those points, we started creating one sentence that would sum up how our mod will be unique even across other mods. So it was supposed to be a story-rich quest with multiple ways to complete them and meaningful consequences. So we had our vision, we have our design focus, and then we started a rough journey. So once again, I won't go through all of them because it would take us like 30 minutes, but I will just mark those two elements on the screen. It looked better, but I hope you can see it, that like 75% of time of the production was to make a playable 6 chapters of the game and some side quest. And only at the very end of creating those quests, even without iterating them for the last time, we only then started some gameplay conceptual work and gameplay systems, because we wanted to create a game that is really quest driven, that the quests define how the mechanics in the game work. So you can run into quests that somebody gives you a list for like recipe for cooking a meal, and this is how you learn that there's a mechanic in the game about cooking. So that's why we created quests, and with story of those quests we're running into ideas what mechanics we could have. Like the story and cool quests were the #1 priority. And what lessons did we learn during this rough journey? So I think this is something that we really didn't come up that early. Like it wasn't our #1 thing, but especially after the production, when I was discussing all those years with my friends from the team, I think it's something that all of them mentioned, that in our team, maybe it's because we were a small team, everybody knew what's the grand scale. So everybody knew what's the vision. Like, okay, we want to create this Gothic-like game, but also we focus on quest and there are multiple ways and consequences. So people in, for example, level design were aware that, okay, I am creating level design for this place, but it must correspond to the quest. I know every quest in the game, even as a level designer. I know every quest in the game, even as a music composer. And it was very important because we were not explaining to ourselves what needs to be done, but why it needs to be done. And I think it was very important because I believe that me or anyone in the team who was leading or was coordinator of some stuff doesn't have the best opinion. Like, we have our visions, we know what we like, we are just some of all our previous experiences. But if we say to someone that, okay, I need this part of music for that reason, the person who is creating it can create it differently in a way you haven't even thought about it, but it will better correspond with all the other elements. And I think it's like #1 thought of this presentation, that spent a lot of time in explaining to everybody on your team or in your company why are you doing this like that, and not just send them tasks. And this is also the one I like, that this perspective on the whole game, like knowing the whole story, even if being like only QA or being like only someone from level design who has very specific task to do in a game, like knowing the whole game makes you feel it better and makes those people who work on those elements not feel like just tools to make tasks, but like they're creating the game, like they're right in this vision, and they can move with their feedback, with their feelings, and even if they see part of the game, they will exactly know they're part of something bigger. And like I touched this subject, that this creates this feeling of ownership. Like all our quality people from quality assurance team, focus testers, all had access to whole knowledge of the game. All had access to all the files, to the media wiki with all the quests, all the old versions of the quest, old maps, old feedbacks. Everybody could, if they wanted to, and we asked them to try it, at least if they had time for it, go deep into all of the things that were connected to creation of the mod. And I think this created this feeling that we own this mod. That, for example, I could be a game director, but I never get a feedback that someone feels that the game is less them and more mine, because I believe that everybody on the team feel involvement into the creation of Chronicles of Myrtana. And this is one another tip, that if you're leading, if you want to have this vision for the game, you really need to know what you want to achieve. Like, you really need to know this final spot, like with our vision that we're creating this story-rich game, but I really didn't know how to achieve this. Like, I didn't really know much about scripting in Gothic. I had no graphic experience. I doesn't know nothing about music. So this is why I was there to steer this ship, to know what's our destination point, and all the people that were creating content were finding solutions to those elements. It's very connected to the previous point, that they should be able to decide about creative ideas in the project. You must connect all of those elements and from time to time move them into more correct direction, so every element of the game corresponds to itself, but let them create cool creative stuff that they will be proud of. Yeah, and initiate discussions, because I will move to that more in a moment, because you can't have all of this without proper discussion and without proper tools for the discussion. And just one note to that, remember that every one of us has a different approach to work, to creating, and we had people in the team that didn't feel too much comfortable with that approach, like they were feeling lost. They were they had this like final task, final thing we want to achieve, but they haven't any sub targets or any special details how to approach their work. So remember that you can't impose this flow of this workflow. You must leave a space that if somebody needs direct tasks or this direct approach, what to do and how, you have to create a way to make it work. And same goals may mean something different across the teams. And we had this case, I will move to this slideshow, that our musician composed a music for the Silbach village, like it's first game hub in the game, and it looks similar to the Lobart's farm from the Corinis. So he, as a musician who at this moment didn't knew that much about the game, he hasn't yet played it because he didn't have time, created a music that was very similar to the Lobart's farm, to this feeling of Corinis villages. But the reason the Silbach village is in the Chronicles is to be in a first hub, something like Old Camp from the Gothic 1. And this created a problem because our focus testers were saying that, okay, they're in the Silbach, but they're feeling like they should go away from it because they're feeling, okay, it's some minor place, it's just full of villagers, nothing important here. But only once we use the soundtrack from the old camp, from Gothic 1, and mix it up with this like villager vibe, this farm vibe, we received a soundtrack that really re-embraced that vision. People who played later, once this music was implemented, were really feeling like, okay, so this is an important place, and feeling this Gothic 1 music from the old camp. So this is my first hub. I will meet important people here. I will settle down here for a little bit. So this is a great example of this slide, to be honest, that you must really acknowledge that people, if they're only looking at their own specific part of the job, can lose track of the other items. And in that situation, soundtrack wasn't that good at embracing the narrative and the flow of the game, and bring in the cavalry. So I added it very late, so I have a like missing image in the bottom, but very important thing for us was always looking for help, and it was often outside help. So in this case, we had a collaboration with Nerd's Kitchen, because we wanted to make the Chronicles of Myrtana more natural, to use more food. We wanted to make it less magic and epic and more about this regular guy. And one of the things we wanted to achieve is to have this regular guy eating normal food and not just drinking tons of potions. But we tried to come up with cool foods, and everything was strange, was not working right with the story, with the world. So we weren't afraid to make a collaboration with someone. And this is something that I really advise you to think of, that if you want to have a part of your game or a team for your game or something like that, always consider bringing or creating a collaboration with guys who know more about the stuff you want to achieve. You don't have to do everything on your own, and you don't have to do everything from the scratch. And okay, that those might be cool sentences, cool things to like, okay, this is the value we want to have in our team, but how to make all of this works? So communication and information, and since we were working remotely, we really had to create spaces for people to talk freely. And I believe that best ideas come from those simple talks we have on the corridors or lying on the couch and talking. I believe that strict meetings that have time from 10 to 10:30 don't produce those cool ideas, cool solutions, because they are forced. You have limited amount of time to create something, and I don't believe it can work. So we are creating spaces, but virtual, and I will move to the topic in a moment, to allow free communication between everyone in the team, not depending on their rank or how long they're in the team. Everybody could talk to everybody. And we also allowed easy access to all the game information. As I said before, like everybody could access all the pages with knowledge of our game. And this is flow of non-production communication. And I believe this is a little bit more problematic in companies when you're getting paid and someone is your boss. But we really believed that this is one of the things that make us work. Like, we worked 4 years with no compensation, but still we liked each other, we knew each other, we feel that we're a team, and everyone, even if they have higher position in the ranks of the team, we are still all at the same level in the communication. So everybody could just write to me, tell me, okay, I'm feeling sick, okay, I have problem in my life, or I don't know how to do my task. And if I knew how to help, I tried to, but if I didn't know, I was just trying to move this conversation to other people and not stigmatize that someone contacted me with things that he shouldn't. And this was our flow of content creation. Like, our leads and coordinators, directors were sending requirements, not the task like one-to-one, do it like this. And we're brainstorming and creating content like not a step from step, not first narrative directors, then gameplay designers, then level designers, and QA at the end. We all created our content together, like in some kind of strike teams. Like when a narrative designer started working on a side quest, he already have a QA with him talking about the design of this quest, because he played all the previous quests for like 10 times, 20 times. He already knew what is annoying in the previous quest, so he could right away give a feedback to the narrative designer what might not wrong. And same goes with gameplay designer. He was the person that was supposed to script the quest after all. So if the narrative designer started working on something that is not achievable in Gothic engine, he didn't lose like 5 hours writing whole quest, because gameplay designer already was there and said, okay, stop, we won't achieve that, maybe move in this way. And this created this cool flow of creating quests that at the beginning of the production, it took us like weeks to get quests from the very beginning to the implementation and like bug fixing. And in the end of production, we were able to add like 1 or 2 side quests daily because of the flow of this communication. And one of very important thing in our team was that leads, directors, and coordinators were also creators of content. Like we didn't have anyone who was not creating and testing, because leads were leading an example how to create their content. So if you were a lead in narrative or in quest design, you were creating quests that showed what might be achieved in quest and how the quest should look like. So you are the person to really look up for. And this brings the subject that our leads, coordinators, even I as a director, was not chosen from the above, like we have in companies that management decides who have what, who is responsible for what. In our team, it was like from the bottom, like people who are narrative designers were deciding which one of them is going to be a coordinator or a lead or something like that. So to be a coordinator or lead, you really had to have trust. Your people have to trust in you, and you really have proven skills, so the people will look up for you. And task assignment, it was very important for us that everybody from team could switch tasks between them. There was never a situation that we said, okay man, do it, and it's your task, and if you don't do it, it's your fault, nobody else. Every time we had something to do, it was moved around people who could work at the time at this task, because we have to remember that everybody working on Chronicles of Myrtana were doing it in their spare time. They had their jobs, they had their studies, stuff like that. So from time to time, some of the people, like for 2 weeks, were off. They couldn't do anything. And this was very important to keep the flow of content creation. So since we knew everything that was happening in the game, since we knew what our target is, who is creating what, we could very easily switch the tasks between the members. And let's move to the tools we used. I'll just check what time we have. Okay. So how did we communicate? And I believe that without the Discord, the Chronicles of Myrtana would never happen. Because, once again, we're doing a non-profit mod. Our budget for tools was around 0, I would say. So Discord had this big plus that it's totally free. It has voice channels. Back in the days, it didn't have a streaming, but we had a ways to mitigate this. Like we had a special channel that one person was streaming to another, and then another was streaming into this channel. So this created this idea of weekly playthrough that I will move to it in a moment. So Discord was like our main hub. It was a place that with one click you can move to any other subject or stage of production. We had links there to current tasks, to the story updates from the Wikimedia page. We had a repository status that we had on GitHub. We had automatic builds and tests that were displaying messages who messed something up in the build and already mentioned him that, okay, it's your fault, your commit is getting erased, get back, fix it, and then we can move along. So the Discord was this place that if you wanted to know something, if you were looking for information, or you just get back from your job or studies and wanted to do something for the mod, you open it up and you already are up to date. You know everything that is happening. And since I had like this one important thing about our values, I believe that this is the most important thing about our communication. And I really didn't know that something like this exists. I just found out with my colleague that there's something like virtual water cooler, and we were using it for 4 years, didn't even knowing that there's something like that. So water cooler is a place in a company, like it's physical place most of the time, that people from this company go to drink water, to talk to each other, to just have few minutes of a break. And what to do if you don't have office and you don't have a place to drink water or to chill. So we had our voice channels, and that's why I'm calling it a virtual water cooler. And I think it's very important in this current situation with many companies working entirely or mostly remotely, that you should think of creating those virtual water cooler, because for us it was like simple channel that was on the very top list of voice channels you can join. So you just open up Discord, okay, you see some messages, but nobody really read all the messages. But you can jump in the channel and somebody, most of the time somebody was already there. With 40 people team, most of the time somebody was sitting there, talking, watching, eating. And it was our place to talk about everything. Like, I think it's very strange that we're creating our game in the virtual water cooler. Like, this water cooler wasn't a place for us to rest after the job, because doing a mod was resting after our real lives. Like, this was another part of our life, and whole Chronicles of Myrtana, and you can quote me on that, were created inside a virtual water cooler. And I believe that this is a place that really helps in this flow of communication, that everybody feels like they're equal. On a Discord channel, there's no higher role, at least there wasn't back then, that you are okay, you can mute everyone. We're sitting all of us there and we were talking, and everybody could take a voice no matter what. And I believe this created a lot of ideas, because if you have a meeting and you have, like I said before, 30 minutes to think of something, okay, we have quest to do, and 15 minutes, and give me some ideas. Nobody will create anything because they're already stressed out that they have only 15 minutes. But if it's a Discord channel that is open 24/7 and you can jump in, jump out, and somebody is always there, okay, you can run your idea into one colleague and he says, no, this doesn't work. But he gives you some advices. You stay in the channel, he goes away, and you're thinking, okay, something like this, something like this. In the meantime, you're grabbing lunch, and somebody else jumps in, and you're telling this updated idea to another person, and those ideas were circulating between us. And since we had a good communication that everybody should be on the same note, all those ideas were growing inside of us. Like, some ideas were took back to the game like after 2 or 3 years, and they were not forgotten because they were in something like our tribal team knowledge, that 3 years ago I mentioned something on the Discord and there were like 10 people. Everybody remembers it, but differently, because after those 3 years our memories start changing the things, and somebody said, okay, so you proposed something like this, and I'm saying, no, it was different, and somebody else adds something else, and all of those ideas could grow because we had this, our common consciousness, like team consciousness, that we're aware of our ideas and they're growing inside of us. So this lead to one big problem, and if I would to say our biggest failure as a team was feeling of missing out, because this virtual water cooler really supports people who like to engage, who like to talk, who like to be there, but it really really is a problem for people who really doesn't want to, like they don't want to argue with people, they don't want to talk, they don't want to shout, they don't want to share their new ideas. And this was a problem, and I didn't find solution for this, for whole production, that many people in our team were starting to be something like outcast. Maybe it's too much of a word, but they were not as engaged as many of us, because they just felt, okay, I am not attending this virtual water cooler, and they're creating cool ideas there, and I'm not knowing everything because they're talking something there. I might not know it. I don't have so much time, so I can keep up with them. And if you will find solution for this, just send me a message on LinkedIn. How'd you make it work? Because this is a great mystery to me, how to fix it. So, coming back on a good note, I think that events and socializing, it's a thing that we also think that, okay, it's in companies, and it's something that companies do to make people come to office, to drink something together, to talk. But I really want to say that it was important. For us, working remotely, possibility to see each other, like for Christmas or something like that, was extremely important. And every time we saw each other in a big group, we was able to see each other, see our faces, especially for the first time, when you can link a face to the voice and to the task someone does. The productivity was sky high, and I really, really advise you to make a lot of events. And same as with missing out, try to think of events that are very inclusive, that not all the people like to go on a party when there's drinking, there's noise, there's stuff. Think of initiatives that make you people come together at their own pace and with their own style, and especially with comfortability, because events, socializing events where people don't feel comfortable are just another step of they feeling left out. So we had a storage for our knowledge. As I said, it was a MediaWiki page. It was especially used in early development. I will have to hurry a little bit, so we'll just go briefly through it. We had a storyline graphs there because there's no visual scripting in Gothic. So our quest designers were doing early, like, blueprinting on the Miro or something like that, and then from those like visual scripts, our quest designers were creating a real code for the quest, because everything had to be written down manually. Also, we had their technical tutorials and pipelines, so it was important for us, like it was connected to the one of our values, that everyone can get all the knowledge they will have to. So we also had a whole game lore. Like if you're new or you were out for a few months, you could get back to this wiki page and learn all about our lore, our current technical tutorials. And plus of this MediaWiki was that with Discord or anything similar to Discord, you get overflown with messages. Like if something happened a month ago and you're trying to scroll up and somebody sends a message, you suddenly get back there, and it's hard to note when was the last time you read this. So the MediaWiki page was a great thing, and also it was free for us because we set up for ourselves to store our knowledge. And I think that many companies use Confluence for stuff like that. Also, we have a lot of documentation in Google Drive. It was especially used in the mid and late development. We used Google Sheets to make some balancing changes, to make list of dialogues to write down, but also forms. Google Forms are, for me, simplest and greatest thing to create this documentation from your virtual water coolers. Because of asynchronous editing, you can all just be in the document. You're in voice channel talking, but you all see the same document that is growing with all the thoughts you had. And I believe that simple tools are the best. If you created a great tool and nobody is using it at home, nobody knows how to use it, it's pointless, because they will get back to their sticky notes, to their notes in the pen and paper notes. And I believe that Google Docs with those documentation for those asynchronous editing and following up with the meetings is great, and it's just enough. So for the backtracking, we had Mantis. I will just skip that for now, because I'd like to move to the last topic that is shorter. Like I said before, testing initiatives. Everyone in our team had to test. Like, you weren't supposed to create content without playing the game, because we believed that there is no option that you can create a cool content that is correct, that is embracing the whole vision of the game, if you don't know what already is there. And so because of that, everybody, and this once again is linked to the up-to-date knowledge, latest working game builds, and most up-to-date game files. Like, it doesn't matter that you are not scripting, that you're not using those files in your daily work. You have access to it, because there might be an occasion you have to use it to check something. Like, you want to check how this quest plays out, you just run the game build and test it out. And those are the reasons I believe that all devs should work, and I mentioned many of them yet. And why I believe that marketing should too, because our audio and marketing were connected. That I think that it really shows how your work reference to work of the other people. Like, okay, I'm doing cool quests, but maybe they can be cooler if I connect to the level designer and tell him, oh, rearrange those stuff. And you can give feedback to other teams, like in the other way. You can tell, okay, maybe I'm just doing music, but I believe that quest is not logical. I didn't know what to do. And this helped, because many times we are just so much into our branch of game dev that we forget that there are regular people that will play our game. Yeah, and it's helping in creating the dedication. Like before, we know the whole vision, but we know how much of this vision we have currently, and we have no false vision. So that's why marketing and people who talked about our game won't tell something in the public that will be used later, like, why don't you have this feature? One of your devs told that you will have this and that. And I believe that's one of the points why Chronicles had so good reviews, because there are very few people that didn't receive what they're expecting, what they think they will. And we had two types of test initiatives, test waves. So it's like after every milestone is a big event in our team, like 20 or 30 people were playing, everybody on the same build. We had Google Forms after that, and also we had weekly playthroughs. So it was like initiative to drop in, drop out, just test one quest, just test one chapter, or you can test a whole game, you can use cheats, whatever, just see how it flows, just see what's the current status. So we had those forms. It's not important because we're lacking time, and we had a problem because I like Google Forms and most of the people don't like that much. I created a Google Forms with 150 questions, so the testers literally wanted to kill me, and they were like, okay, game is cool, but I don't want to play it, and don't tell him, meaning him, I mean myself, that I am playing the game because I don't want to fill out the forms, but I want to finish the game. So that's why when I thought that, yeah, forms should be open to let them tell what they think, but really keep them simple, keep them strict, because after 10 questions, I can promise you that they are only clicking as fast as they can go through all the form, and they just don't care. They won't give you that good feedback. Maybe often more forms, but smaller and simpler. And this is a takeaway. What I want to take on your game dev journeys or maybe modding journeys. So clearly state the idea and build all the solutions, and not only solution in game, but management solution on the vision of the game. We're creating a game that is quest based, so that every element in the game and our workflow have to correspond that this is a game about quest, and you have to find your way, and you have to make everything around what this game is supposed to be. Make sure that your team knows what's the purpose of this of their work. Like I said, don't tell them what to do one to one. It's going then to be your game, your own game, and if maybe it will work, but if it won't work, you will have angry people in your team that, okay, you said to do it like this, why doesn't it work? But if you create together, even if you fail, even if the game is a huge disaster, you feel, okay, we went in the wrong direction, we are in this together, and I can promise you they will want to work with you, because they will feel that you value their input and their decisions. Encourage open communication. Let people, even from the lowest of the low on your company, on your team, be able and not be afraid to contact even directors and stuff like that. And I know in the companies, when there's a big money, it could be troublesome, but I believe that people who feel that they are not treated as someone worse, because companies like to tell that everyone is equal, but you can't really write to your boss because he won't respond to you, and then you can have problems. Why do you even talk to him? Encourage that this talk is open and everybody feels that they can tell what they feel currently. And very important thing, make testing a game regular activity for everyone inside the team, because I believe without everyone knowing how the game looks like, the game can't be good. And this is all from my side. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'm free for you.
Thank you very much, Jakub. We are a little bit after time, but I think we still can have one or two questions. So if there is any, okay.
Hello. What were the biggest technological challenges that you encountered during the development?
I believe it was mostly problems with quest design. Like, we run into thing that some of our cutscenes, because we have Gothic had this system of cameras that are done by the system. Like, there are just some points, some angles that are automatically set, and we tried to make some more cinematic scenes with cameras riding from side to side, and like half of our cutscenes at some point stopped working, and we was wondering what is happening, why it's like this. And it turned out that in a Gothic you had to have like you can't have 2 or 4 cameras or 6. You always have to make it like 1, 3, 5 or 7. So you can't have a pair of cameras, because after the second it can't go back to the player camera, because it believes that the other camera it is currently in is a player camera. So it was like we're struggling and thinking, because it's such nonsense that it works like this, but the game is filled with the problems. We felt a little bit like archaeologists, because we digged into the script of those German developers with their German comments and with stuff like, okay, just leave that stuff because it works. And it turned out that it worked, but after you remove it. So it was like every day we were finding things in that script that amazed us. And I think it was cool, because we were not creating from scratch. We were like building on the top of ancient civilization, and it was great.
Thank you.
Thank you. One more question.
Hi, I know this is a sensitive topic, so feel free to not answer. I heard that there was some kind of like a clash or some kind of rift in the community. So, can you say anything about what you learned from this, or what not to do, or like a warning for everyone, or do you prefer not to comment on it?
Could you specify what?
I'm not entirely sure, but there was this one person that left with like a part of the team, or maybe I'm confusing something.
Yeah, this is a really old topic.
Okay,
and
that's why I'm saying like you don't have to
there is-
answer. No, no
yeah,
worries.
there is like another modding team we were connected with previously, but since the beginning of the Chronicles of Myrtana, like those 4 years we were developing, were with no contact with them. They're doing their own work, so you can just try to reach them, because I don't really know what's going on with them, and I don't really want to comment on this situation any further.
Thank you very much. I think we have to finish now. So thank you for the questions. Thank you, Jakub, for the presentation.
Thank you very much.